Do you know what the collective noun for a group of Orioles is, according to the internet?
I hope it's Oriole.
Murder.
It's not. It's
What is
a
it?
flamboyance of Orioles.
Yes.
Isn't that fun?
That is so fun.
I
like,
demand
flashy.
that the Baltimore Orioles baseball team now refer to the team collectively as a flamboyance. And be like, the flamboyance is taking the field.
Here we go. Welcome to 1999, the podcast. I'm your host, Jen Tisdale, and I'm a bridesmaid.
And I'm also your host, John Brooks, and I'm not. No.
Fingers crossed. Don't run. Woo, boy, oh boy. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, we're still in Julia Roberts town this week
We are.
for our second
That's right.
our second week. Although it is a lesser town than the first town.
Well, and thankfully for the listeners, we'll have some information about the actual town as well. This was a bit of method acting / really a fully immersive project.
There was some on location scouting for this one. But no, excited to talk about this, whatever this is.
Oh no, it sounds like you didn't like it. Oh no.
I guess we can call it a movie.
Oh no, it sounds like you didn't like it. Oh no.
I did not, but we will.
Oh boy, we will. We shall.
We will get to that later on.
Let's get into this. Let's get into what we're doing, she said vaguely.
Yeah.
So, Runaway Bride was released on July 30th, 1999 and galloped away with $12 million on opening day alone. It would go on to gross. Money. I know. We have to remember the year and the Roberts and the Gere of it all.
Yeah.
It would go on to gross $152.3 million in the United States and Canada, a country people from America would love to run away to. And I don't just mean during Vietnam. It's pretty up there. Worldwide, the spiritual sequel to Pretty Woman would make $309.5 million, which many would consider a success unless you're the Metacritic score, which is a dismal 39.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of scores, the oft-wrong Rotten Tomatoes gives this movie a 46%, and I have to assume it's because angry boys hate seeing women bone more than one dude. And boy, is this somewhat implied in this motion picture.
I don't think that's it, but
I mean, literally she speaks with 3 X's, you're just sort of forced to say to yourself, she had sex with all these men and probably the one she was going to marry. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And sort of a High Fidelity-esque. Okay. What did the actual critics say, John? Great question. Is it? Go ahead and correct me at any last names at any time. Kenneth Turan, sure. For the Los Angeles Times,
I think it's Turan, but I can't remember. I think it is Turan.
It's Kenneth Runaway Bride for the Los Angeles Times. Yep. For the LA Times said, and I quote, "It took the combined efforts of 2 studios, 3 executive producers, 4 producers, 3 co-producers, and who knows how many agents, managers, attorneys, and personal assistants to make Runaway Bride happen. Yeah. And in their fiscally sound eagerness to get it done, everyone ignored how flawed and unpleasant the film's conception is." Oh, Kenneth. Yeah. This motion picture barely got Roger Ebert on board, who gave it 2 stars, but a thumbs up, writing,
"Okay.
Sometimes a movie manipulates me in dumb ways, and I grin and purr." He also said, after seeing Gere and Roberts play much smarter people, even in romantic comedies, it is painful to see them dumbed down here. The screenplay is so sluggish, they're like Derby winners made to carry extra weight. Yikes. Now, if you're saying to yourself, maybe a lady liked it, wrong. You're wrong. The New York Times' Janet Maslin declared, more often, the film is like ride through a car wash. Forward motion, familiar faces in the same old order, and a sense of being carried along steadily on a well-used track. It works without exactly showing signs of life. Now, John, What in the heck is this clearly despised movie all about? I'm the only one, I think.
Well, I struggle a bit because I have to admit that at certain points I'm like, what is this about? What is actually happening in this movie? So here's what I came up with. Runaway Bride. Runaway Bride, never run. Runaway Bride is about hotshot big city reporter, or not reporter because he's a columnist. I don't know. Anyway, hotshot big city reporter Ike Graham, otherwise known as Homer, I think Eisenhower Graham. I think that's his full name. We find out at the end.
Oh my God! Do you think it's Homer because he's a writer?
Yeah, of course it's Homer because he's a writer. Of course it is. Yeah, because his mom wanted him to be a novelist, or whatever it is that he says. Anyway, as I was saying, hotshot big city reporter Ike Graham is looking for his next big story when, hanging at his favorite bar, he happens upon a drunken stranger who tells him of the Runaway Bride, a woman in Maryland who's famous for not getting married. Ike fills in some details here and there, submits his story, and draws the ire of the Runaway Bride herself, Maggie Carpenter, who writes an angry letter to the editor, who happens to be Ike's ex-wife, who fires him for journalistic malpractice. Determined to get back on the horse and save his career, he takes, there's a lot of horses in this movie, he takes the advice of his pal Fisher, who also happens to be his ex-wife's current husband, to go to Maryland himself and catch the Runaway Bride in the act and justify his story. Maggie is about to get married to Coach Bob, or is she, played by Christopher Maloney, and as the arrogant, snobby Ike gets to know Maggie and her quirky small-town friends, he finds that maybe he wants to be her stick-around groom.
That's the opposite of the runaround Sue. The stick around.
I couldn't think of what the opposite of runaway was, so I went with stick around. One word.
Her sticky
One
groom.
word in my notes. The stick around groom. That should be the sequel. But this movie, yeah. And it was the 9th highest grossing movie of ye old 1999, so we are back in top 10 town, although should have been Notting Hill. Just gonna say that.
Of right the now. Roberts vehicles.
You got the wrong rom-com Roberts movie, America.
They were swept up by the Pretty Woman of it all.
They were like, it's basically Pretty Woman 2, and I like Pretty Woman 2 better than basically 4 Weddings and a Funeral 2.
Prettier women.
Anyways, yeah, I watched it.
You did.
I did. I watched it for the second time. I've watched it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it with our this is week 2 of very special episodes. Mm-hmm. Which does sound like maybe we're going to teach kids how to not buy drugs. This is a very special episode.
We would never do that.
No, I would encourage it. Our guest today is...
Who is it?
Dr. Greg Pilgrim is a scientist. He attended the University of Rochester and Johns Hopkins University and is the author of such page-turners as Carbon Nanotube-Based Membrane for Light-Driven Simultaneous Proton and Electron Transport, as well as, my favorite, Method for Conditioning a Ceramic Coating. But perhaps
that's a good one.
Well, listen, I can't wait for the sequel.
A banger, as the kids say.
That's correct. But perhaps his biggest resume bullet point is that he is my boyfriend.
Hello.
You have a boyfriend. Wow, you've never mentioned that on the show all the time.
That's correct.
That's crazy. Hello, Greg. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
And congratulations on those amazing page turners of science that you've done.
Guys, I'm a little worried though, really. It has occurred to me, right? Your guests are usually writers and comedians. Because they're funny and they're insightful and they get on the air and they're funny and insightful. It's great. I really love the podcast. But like Jen said, I am a scientist and I'm here because I'm sleeping with one of the hosts.
That's right.
But we're not going to do it on air. So I'm kind of unclear what I am going to do. It's a bit of a mystery, kind of an experiment. Make sure you're wearing
you're
your
gonna
goggles.
You're gonna dissect it in a very scientific
You're gonna
manner.
approach the scientific method. You're gonna it's first come up with a hypothesis, and then we're gonna be your control and variable. These are all the words I remember from high school.
Yeah.
Doing great.
Photosynthesis.
There's gonna be photosynthesis.
Yep.
You're gonna put some hydrochloric acid on a piece of aluminum foil and see what happens in a test tube.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a lima bean into a cup with a damp, what is it? With a damp paper towel. And we're just going to see what pops up, as they say.
I hope it's
I'm going to put a banana into a Coke bottle and see how many fruit flies are made.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that an experiment that they have children do?
Yeah.
This is
I feel like
everything.
I've accidentally been doing that experiment.
Involved. Yeah, well, there is that. Yeah.
Woo! And Greg and I, we took this. We, as the kids like to say, we understood the assignment. Is that one still?
You did. You took this very, very seriously.
We went and we did we went to the film location in beautiful Berlin, Maryland. And if you think a city right up the street from there doesn't have a chunk of the Berlin Wall in Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, honey, it does. So, Runaway Bride. Can I say?
Does it really have a chunk of the Berlin Wall?
Oh yeah, in Ocean City.
I have a chunk of the Berlin Wall.
It sounds like the Berlin Wall's a little slutty because it's gotten around.
It was very, very, very big. So like there was a lot of chunks to go around. When I was in Berlin in 1994, I think, or three or four. So it was like within 5 years of the wall coming down, and they were selling them in like chunks that were like this big, right? Or you could get like a glass encased one for like posterity that was like this big. So,
Does yours have
there's a lot of
like spray
graffiti?
paint? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the good one. Yeah.
The one in
most of them do, to be honest. Like most of them spray paint on them.
Not the one in Ocean City, Maryland.
Nope.
Sorry.
Absolutely blank.
Okay. Fancy.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we should all do is I think we should all talk about what our favorite, how do we like our eggs? John, how do you like your eggs?
I have to I gotta be honest, and this is sort of my personality is the same thing when people are like, what's your favorite this and that thing? Or like, I like eggs in all kinds of different ways. I don't really have a favorite. I think like really well scrambled eggs are like always a good go-to. It's like hard to fuck that up, and it's easy to do. But if someone can like really nail like a poached egg or like a what's the one with the spinach? Where you have poached eggs and spinach, whatever that is, Florentine. Yeah, that's the way to do it. I've never tried poaching an egg. It seems really hard and like easy to fuck up. I have a really hard time just making an egg like fried without fucking it up, which is why I like scrambled eggs because it's like pre-fucked up. But yeah, I don't know. I like them all kinds of ways. I really do. I like Scotch eggs because I'm English, and so
and they sell those at the Maryland Renaissance Festival. So
of course,
delicious.
Look, cover a boiled egg in like sausage and fucking breadcrumbs, and yeah. I mean, yeah, give it to me. I'm all about that. So
Gregory,
I think my default is scrambled. I'll say.
Yeah, Gregory, I know this answer, but how do you like your egg?
Well, do you have a silly answer?
No, I know how you. I know we've talked about eggs. Honestly, every time we go to breakfast or brunch, we talk about eggs.
I'm not a huge egg eater, really.
Nope.
I can eat them. They're good as a vehicle for hot sauce, I think. So
they are. I agree with that. With hot sauce, is a good answer.
Yeah, I do not like hollandaise sauce. So all these brunch places that serve stuff with hollandaise sauce, please stop. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah. What do you think of aioli? Do you like aioli or do you not like aioli?
It's like fancy mayonnaise, right?
Yeah.
You go to some of these restaurants and I feel like you do, like you pay by the adjective. Like it's not just a cheeseburger. It's like aged Wagyu beef Wisconsin cheddar
grass-fed.
burger, just like grass-fed in there. Like,
yeah,
it's the same though.
I agree. I think that's you've cracked the culinary code. You just charge more money for words.
Yeah.
Jen, what's your egg?
I would rather die than put an egg inside my body, other than the ones that are coming out of my uterine lining as we speak.
So you hate eggs?
No, I hate eggs, and I'll occasionally have a scrambled egg, but I have to put so much cheese in it that basically I'm just having like a block of cheese with like a suggestion of an egg inside of it. So I like egg as a vehicle for cheese. What frustrates me about eggs is how delicious they sound on a menu. Like an omelet description sounds fantastic. Something burrito sounds great, but the egg really messes it up. So if I could just have everything in the omelet and hold the egg, I don't know what that is. What is that? Just a plate of meat and
like
cheese and vegetables.
Like a saute.
That's what I want. Hold the egg. When I occasionally go to a fast food restaurant and I get a breakfast thing, I'm like, please take that disgust. Just give me the sausage and like the croissant.
A bunch of crumbles of bacon and cheese sounds great, but do I have to have eggs involved? Because can I have?
And there's some in my refrigerator right now, and they'll just die there. They'll die there.
That's funny. Courtney has a very strong like her one egg thing is like no hard-boiled eggs. Like she can't stand the actual.
Wait. I like deviled eggs. Sorry.
Those are good.
Oh yeah, she despises deviled eggs. Like that's the grossest thing in the world.
Oh, because they're hard-boiled.
Yeah, okay. But they're hard-boiled like plus weird creamy things. And she's like, no. And it's the texture and all that. I love it, but that's
can I say one more thing? I only like the center of the deviled egg. So I eat the rest of it because it's probably insane to scoop it out like just like a little baby. But if I had my druthers, my Mr. Druthers, I would just eat a bowl of the middle of a deviled egg. I don't know. I'm okay.
It's made in a bowl, though, right? They make it in a bowl and put it back in the egg.
You're right.
Be easier. Do it your way.
Don't put it in there. Guys, I do have a physical in the next couple of weeks. They are going to check my cholesterol. They're going to find some things out. And they're going to go, have you just been eating the insides of deviled eggs? And I'm going to be like, absolutely. Lipitor.
Yeah. Great protein. I will say, so that like I kind of rolled my eyes at how much they lean into eggs in this movie as a plot point. And having said that, and having had this conversation, I'm now realizing that like I'm pretty sure I knew the egg preferences of like everybody I've ever dated. For some reason, it's a thing that comes up very frequently, and that's very weird to me now, suddenly. I suppose because I went to brunch a lot with people when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But do you think it's because there are so many ways to prepare an egg that it really says something about a person? Not just the part where you know your partner well enough to know. Because I think the old one was how you take your coffee. Right? There was like an older movies. The trope is like, how do you take your coffee? And if you don't know how your person takes your coffee, you're a fucking asshole. But I guess they did an updated Maryland cholesterol version for Runaway Bride, and it was eggs.
Well, isn't it like the chef's hat, the little like ripples in it? Don't they all represent different ways of making an egg? Isn't that right?
What?
Never heard.
I think that's right.
I've never heard of this. What?
Okay, so I did a class at for school at the Culinary Institute of America in New York, and I'm pretty sure I remember them saying, so you know how chefs' hats have those like lines.
Yes.
In the hat part, right?
Where the guy catches them at the.
And I think it's like 130 different ways that you can make an egg, and like each one of them represents the different ways you can make an egg. And like it used to be back in the days of like the cordon bleu in Paris, that like in order to pass your chef's test, you had to be able to prepare the eggs in every single way.
So are folks at Eggland's Best like trying to come up with number 131? Like, that's where the money's going.
I may hold on.
Pushing the frontier forward. I'm still waiting for Heinz 58, right? They've been promising that for years.
Well, we're waiting for Sufjan Stevens to do the rest of the states.
This is way off topic, obviously, but I just Googled
We're never
going
to talk about the movie.
Why does a chef's hat have 100? So it's 100 pleats. Okay. And apparently there's many origin stories, and then chef's hat, the myth. In the early days, the number of pleats in the chef's hat represented the number of recipes a chef knew for a given food item, like chicken or egg. Having a hat with 100 pleats meant he knew 100 recipes to prepare with an egg. So that might be true, I guess. I guess they're saying they don't know if it's true or not. So there you go.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's very weird, but like chefs are weird, and that makes sense to me because they're very weird people, in general. So anyway,
okay.
There's some
Runaway Bride.
That may or may not be true.
Runaway Bride. Now,
back.
A fun.
What? Yeah, go ahead.
Runaway Bride. I'm gonna do the whole song. So this movie, which again we are all sort of making lightly saying it was a spiritual sequel to Pretty Woman. Actually, yes. If this LA Times article is to be believed, titled "Bride's Long Path to the Altar" from August 1999, this was in the old studio system for a full decade. So if that's 1989, I will assume. When did Pretty Woman come out? 90 something?
91 or 2.
1, 2.
Or maybe 90. So, maybe 90. It might have been 90. Hold on.
Do you think that this
90.
was actually written first? Because they were in mind.
Well, it depends on what you mean by written, right? Because like, if you don't know the story of Pretty Woman, like before it was a romantic comedy in 1990, it was a like hard-hitting expose of like the prostitution, streets of LA, written in like the late 80s. So it took its time getting to. If the first draft of this was actually 89, then like Pretty Woman was by definition like written first. But like Pretty Woman as it exists and as a blockbuster hit, like obviously is after this was written. But also very clearly this was like rewritten by many people over a long period of time.
Well, and also if I had read 2 more paragraphs of this article, I would be able to let both of you know that 1989 is when the story was pitched. And then 3 years later, the first person to see this was Gina Davis, who would have been great in this, I think. And so that was that. So by that point, we have to assume that eventually, as it made its way to Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, that they were sort of hoping to get on the Pretty Woman train for this. It worked. I love this movie.
For sure. I mean, like the reunion of Julia Roberts and Richard Gere and Gary Marshall of Pretty Woman as like it was very upfront in like the marketing of this movie leading up to it, that like that's what was going on, right? That, like that was the pitch, is like, you liked him before, you're gonna 9 years later you're gonna like him again.
I remember being excited, like not like I was like this. I know I was a big Pretty Woman head. I not necessarily, but I just remember thinking, this is incredible.
Oh my God, they're back.
They said it couldn't be done. Who said it?
Yeah.
So John, you didn't really like this movie. I liked this movie. Greg, we didn't watch it together for fear of chitty chatting about it to each other, which we would have done.
Yes.
What is your initial thoughts on Runaway Bride?
So I enjoyed this movie. It did do that thing, right? It shows you the cover on Amazon, and it's her like lacing up shoes, and she does not ever do that in the movie. It's very misleading. She does not ever wear the dress and the shoes.
Right.
So right away, it's based on a lie.
Yeah.
But...
It's really looking forward to the big shoe scene, and then and
she only actually runs twice. She escapes. She escapes on a motorcycle the first time, right? I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead.
No, you can jump around.
She escapes on the motorcycle. That was a weird coincidence. And the second one, she runs, right? And then the third one, they gave her a horse ahead of time. They knew what this woman was like because it was the third time. And they gave her a horse. And she used it. And you would do, right? Just because, just to ride the horse. It would be fun.
Yeah, and also, I don't want to victim blame, but, like, you're asking for it. If you give this lady a horse, seriously. You're like, well...
Yeah, but Julia Roberts, right? She lives on a ranch, I think, right? Maybe she knows how to ride a horse.
She does. She is an accomplished, at this time, and possibly still to this day, an accomplished equestrian. She did all of her own horseback riding stunts. So she was raring to go. The old JR.
So that's what she would do. I mean, I think if I had a boat, I'd go out on the ocean. And if I had a pony, I'd ride him on my boat.
Freaking lie, love it into this.
She used the pony for other things. That's fine, I guess.
I thought you were going to say they need to get this woman married in like a place where she can't run, which sounds so scary. We're going to go to the middle of the ocean, try to run away now.
Well, they tried to bar the doors in that one.
They did.
That was very alarming.
Yeah, she got
very upset.
Julia Roberts has really big eyes, and she looked like a deer when they like get cornered somewhere.
People are much too invested in her relationships in this movie, and it makes me very uncomfortable how much people's happiness is dependent on Julia Roberts' relationship status in this movie. It feels too communal.
Yeah, we're to understand this is an effective living in a really small town. That this is kind of the entertainment. This is what they've got on.
Yeah. And I do want to say, since I think it's fair to compare this to Notting Hill. I didn't, unlike Notting Hill, I didn't believe for 1 second that these people all knew each other. Look, first of all, I'm never going to have a bad thing to say about Joan Cusack.
Immaculate.
Joan Cusack is, Greg is not as great at actor names. So I'm just explaining. Joan Cusack was the one friend who is like, mainly with her most of the time.
The friend that
she's to the most. Yes. Sister to John Cusack.
Okay.
She's never had a single bad role in her entire life, and she never will.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike, like I was saying, Notting Hill, I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel that these people knew each other their entire lives. And maybe I'm just like thinking of Notting Hill and I can't get it out of my head.
It's hard to top that friend scene from Notting Hill. But,
mm-hmm.
but it did remind me of Notting Hill. You guys kind of talked about it on the last episode about Notting Hill. Like, Anna Scott kind of sucks. And I also kind of don't get what's so great about Maggie Carpenter, other than that she looks like Julia Roberts, which is a good look.
She's quirky. That's
all these guys, right? They're in these relationships, and they don't notice that it's just them in it. It's all their interests and their stuff.
Well,
whatever.
I feel like that speaks more about them than it does about Maggie, who has no personality.
Yeah, it is. That is an indictment of them as well. But they're like self-involved people dating a really boring woman.
Yeah, no. So it was like at the end of the movie where she's like, nobody saw the real me, but you did. And I was like, but why didn't we see? Why didn't we get to? Like, what are you talking about? Who are you?
The real her is just lamps. That's it. It's full of lamps.
Lamps and eggs. That's all you are. And
initially, not even any eggs. That's growth. That's personal growth.
That is growth.
Also, I know we're gonna jump around, but I also I forgot what I was gonna say. Flew right out of my head. No.
God, something about the beginning of the movie?
Nope, it's never. It might come back. It might be in my notes. So go ahead. Maggie is a shell of a human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He
kind of sucks too. They really lean into him being terrible, especially at the beginning.
So the one thing I really like about this movie is I like a good arrogant, sassy Richard Gere. I love Richard Gere, just generally as an actor. He's one of my favorites. But we don't usually get to we don't usually get to see him being real sassy and kind of a dick, which is a lot of fun.
I like Richard Gere, but speaking to that, right? He is usually very nice.
Yeah.
And I think the main problem with Richard Gere is that he has a terrible name. His name should be Richard Deere. and like to his adoring public, right? He's like a real sweetheart. But then by the light of the full moon, I think he could be Dick Deer, frolicking through the forest, fornicating.
Sure.
Yeah, it would be fun. It's alter ego.
I do want to say that when we first meet Richard Gere, he kind of slips in and out of a New York accent.
I love it. It's so weird and just
when he's angry and yelling,
inconsistent.
It happens. But normally he's just Richard Gere. He's an officer. He's a gentleman.
Yeah,
and I also, this is also I clocked this as what I call the Sex and the City effect, where I'm supposed to understand. Now, granted, he does write for USA Today, and I made a note to myself that I didn't follow through on to Google USA Today to see what it looked like in 1999, because I'm like, I guess they probably had a columnist like this. Like, is this what USA Today was doing in 1999?
It wasn't just charts, infographics.
Yeah, it wasn't just about USA Today. But I'm to understand that this man has his single column, and he lives in that gorgeous. The same, similar to Sarah Jessica Parker, that her apartment was almost manageably small, like on his single column.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's New York propaganda, right? Because people, they want you to like New York City, even though it's terrible, right?
John, you're going to find out some harsh truths in this episode, and that's Greg and I both cannot stand New York
It's
City.
awful.
Okay,
I mean, when he's talking about the lamps, right? He's like, you could sell these in New York. Like, that's the thing to aspire to in life. A shop in this one place. Like,
if it makes you feel any better,
she has to make them personally.
They filmed all of the New York stuff in Baltimore, so
good.
Yeah.
Baltimore's great.
Yeah, we love Baltimore. We hate New York.
New York.
You heard it here.
Yep.
Oh, come on.
Sorry, our
great.
piles of garbage get cleaned up.
Yeah, it doesn't smell bad.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
God, I'm gonna lose listeners. You know what? You can find me on the internet.
No, New Yorkers talk shit about New York all the time. It's fine. Don't worry about that. Look, people routinely talk shit about Baltimore, and nobody's worried about that.
I know. We had to be the butt of a Matt Rife joke. Is there any safety in the world? So there's that. Also, I love that when we see Richard Gere strolling confidently into the USA Today, what we later realize is the USA Today offices, and people are reading his column. And I thought to myself, surely this went through several edits. This isn't the first time everyone at the paper is seeing
so this is one of my many problems with this movie is like the way it's so detached from the way anything works at all. And it's just very weird. Like, I think USA Today did have columns or does have columns, but then I'm like, he's a columnist. Like, it doesn't matter if he writes bullshit. That's what columns are for. Like, you can just make shit up for columns. It's not reporting. Like, what does he actually do? Is he a columnist who also has to like fact check things? Because it's opinion. That's the whole point of writing a fucking column. I don't really understand what the controversy was. I'm like, well, you wouldn't get in trouble for that because you can just write whatever the fuck you want in a column.
I think the controversy is that he name checks.
Yeah, he lied as a real person.
But it doesn't sound like he did really lie. I guess what he said 6 or 7 times. Is that the big lie, that it was actually 3 and not 6 or 7? Ooh,
yeah.
That's not.
That's also not what people write columns about. Like, nobody would write that in a column. That is like a local interest story. It's not a fucking like. I don't know. It's very weird. Like the whole notion of him getting to the point of writing this story is like, I don't see how this connects. But
I can
he
see
just wanted to talk about man eaters because he didn't. Like
yeah. I would love
which because the song plays.
Yep, it's very subtle.
So
I'd love to see I would love to see his other articles though, where he's we only got a vague description by the woman who was in that Shelley Long movie, Hello Again.
Yeah.
That's all I remember her from in the bar.
This is one of the things as well. Like one of my like wish list is that people would take characters from like movies like this and just like turn them into actual Twitter accounts now. So like, Ike Graham can have his own Twitter account where he just talks shit about women or whatever.
Misogynist
I know, but it would be like you could make these characters live on in the Twitter sphere, and it would be more fun. But
this is also a time, and again, similar to Carrie Bradshaw, Sarah Jessica Parker in Sex and the City, people on the street, and I know his pictures in the paper by his columns, but people in the street just recognize Ike. Yeah. Left, like everybody, and again, he probably lives and works in that neighborhood. Obviously, people know, but still, just like this posits a world where like a columnist in USA Today is basically like an author, a published author.
It's like, did David Brooks write this movie? Oh, this is what it's like for me every time I publish in the New York Times. Just people stop me in the street. But no relation, by the way. My dad's name is David Brooks, but it's not the same one. But
what?
Yeah.
So I loved seeing that too. I love seeing a world where Richard Gere is recognized by every age and person on the streets of New York City.
And then swat him with the paper.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what they like. That's what you want to get. Like, I still don't. You're right. I don't know why he was fired. I don't know why he was fired.
Yeah, it's weird.
It sounds like he'd been a raging misogynist for quite some time.
And like, what? So, okay, what is a lamp salesperson in rural Maryland suing the USA Today amounting to? Like how's that lawsuit gonna work?
She works at a hardware store. Her name is Maggie Carpenter. It's hilarious.
Oh wait, her name is Maggie Carpenter. Oh
yeah, because her dad works hardware. Yeah, Homer and Carpenter. See, it's all symbolism for
now
things.
I was trying to get, I know we're jumping everywhere, I was trying to get the layout of her home. Is that because which Greg and I saw? So just to like,
you went to the house.
We went to, I have pictures. When you go to the city, they know about this movie more than people should, perhaps 25 years later, but it's adorable. You can go to the town hall and get a map of the film locations, or just use your phone, which I still made a woman print it out in town hall for me because I'm 100 years old. She was like, what? It's on your phone. So the first thing we did was eat at the Falcon Diner, which is now called something with an R. Greg, do you remember?
Ray's Reef?
Ray's Reef. And what I didn't realize until I watched the movie, because I watched it after we went, was that we sat at the place where Julia Roberts and Chris Maloney sat at the counter. We sat right there. Our little butts were right there. Felt it.
Yep.
And,
magical.
this town is... remembering Runaway Bride. It's beautiful, it's delightful, but it's virtually unchanged. So never have I felt like I was on a movie set more than when I watched this. It was crazy.
I always think of movies, like I know you guys get on here and like about movies and stuff, and you talk about cinematography and whatever. I always just kind of think that movies are like people point a camera at a thing that is already there. And I know it's not true, but honestly, watching this movie and going to Berlin, that's what they did. They just pointed a camera at a town that already existed.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a
it's
little
lovely.
Hallmark.
It's a beautiful town.
It's a little Hallmark movie. It's so cute.
They just go to the
Atlantic
planets
Hotel.
in Star Wars and just film them there.
Yeah. We did stay in the Atlantic Hotel on the same floor where Richard Gere's room was.
Oh, very nice.
And the keys are the same, those little brass jobbies that they gave.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. Did the front desk person, was he still playing Virtual Boy? Because
that was
it was a lady.
Oh well, then
it was a snarky woman. When we walked in the lobby, there was like a piece of paper framed that said 3 p.m. High tea, and I got very excited because I love high tea. But it was after 3, and I was like, "Oh, that's such a bummer." And I mentioned it to the woman at the front desk, and she goes, "What did she say, Craig?" She was like,
"She said something about, well, if you'd read carefully, you'd know it was only on the third Thursday."
She was like, "Did you read the small print?" And then the next day we read it again, and guess what? The date wasn't on there at all. Berlin, Maryland.
None at all.
Small town charm, small town harm.
It is awesome though. Really do.
It's beautiful and I love it. I endorse. So good. But yeah, so with Maggie's house, I couldn't figure out, does she live just like in that attic where she punches her punching bag all the time? I don't understand. Does she live with her
and finds
father and her grandmother?
Records? Yeah.
Listen, I have a lot to say about how that record was beat up to shit, and it's not that hard to find that album. It's one of my favorites, and Richard Gere acting like it was getting a first edition of something. But in terms of Maggie's house, it's still blue. It's a little bit more rundown looking, and now that the train tracks where the train goes by, that it's no longer an operation. The train tracks are of course still there, but now it's just like one of those fun things where you can rent like a pedal those thing bikes, that you go down on the tracks. Trains, cool. No more trains. I don't know what happened in the past 25 years, but they don't go by Maggie's house anymore. Sorry, that's what you guys are hoping for.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So. What else? What else were we saying before I got to the? I do want to talk about when they ate crabs because I had a lot of issues.
And they ate Utz cheese curls. Mm-hmm. This is all we eat in Maryland. There you go. As people know, crabs and Utz snack products, and we're very happy about it.
But the way delicious. They set up their table, am I getting too into the weeds? Yeah. Is this not a good podcast? I just want to say, never have I ever seen crabs placed as if there are like a centerpiece in my life. I was like, why are they stacked like it's a house of cards? What am I looking at? In Maryland, you dump a bushel onto a table and pray that you're not poisoned by Old Bay. That's it. I don't know what they were doing over there. Is this good podcasting? Guys, are people out there
if
like
they were on a plate? You would say they were plated, but they were on a table.
What were they doing? They like literally someone stacked them up in the most perfect configuration, like it was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I was like, what's happening with these crabs? Devastating. Just couldn't believe it. But other than that, 10 out of 10, no notes on this film.
Hollywood crabs.
That's correct.
So different from in real life. So I was like, okay, this film and I are not going to get along, really from the get-go, because like when you have a scene of Julia Roberts like riding a horse through the countryside, running away from her wedding, to I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Like, no, this is not congruous. Like this is not what that song is. And I talked a lot of shit about the Notting Hill soundtrack last week, but like, man, I take it all back because boy, the soundtrack to this movie and just the way it's like, the man-eater, it's like, oh, hey, is it time for that? And it's bad. I mean, there's some good music actually in here. And like, I love, the Mark Anthony song at the end and all that stuff. But like,
that was incredible.
The guy who killed Cleopatra or married her or what?
Yes, the one. Yes.
The J-Lo's first husband.
Yeah.
Mark
or Anthony. One of her husbands.
Yeah. Because I can't keep up.
She was married before him as well. But You Sang to Me, right? That song? Yeah. It's really good. Love that song. I liked some of the music here, but they were just it was just like someone with an iPod just being like, time for a song. And I'm like, does this really work here? And do we need it? And pretty much overkill. But yeah, no, don't put U2 in that scene. Like, what are you doing? This is an iconic song that has no place in this opening to this romantic comedy. Thank you very much. However, I did then give some points back when I remembered that Larry Miller is in this movie. And anytime you put Larry Miller in a thing, I am in favor of that happening. He mostly just stands around handing out drinks, but he does have that great faces.
He's the bartender.
He does have that great Aka the Runaway Bride line that when he's reading the newspaper column and he pronounces AKA as Aka, which is pretty goddamn funny because Larry Miller is the best. But yeah, Larry Miller also joining the You Must Have Made 2 movies in 1999 club, because of course he's the dad in 10 Things I Hate About You.
That's right.
And of course also Joan Cusack, who is Jessie in Toy Story 2, doing her second round here. But aside from like the scenes, like the supporting cast. My problem with this movie ultimately, and I'm not going to like get too far into it, is that it just feels like a first draft. Or it feels like an idea that they were just like, all right, let's see what happens. And nobody kind of fleshed that idea out. And I even like watching the montage at the end and sort of like looking at all these people in these scenes, I'm like, I feel like there's a much better movie that could have been like pared down here, but it just sort of goes all over the place. But the supporting cast is like uniformly great. Like Laurie Metcalf, whenever she's in a scene, is like awesome, and Joan Cusack is awesome, and like, you know, Maloney obviously is like always fucking awesome. So yeah, I don't know. It just sort of seems like a lot of people kind of doing a bunch of different things, and sometimes it's funny and entertaining, and sometimes people just seem like they really want to go home. And I don't know.
Do you know? I'm going to read this LA Times article again, and then it might I'll say something, and then it'll be revealed in 2 paragraphs. But so they initially chose Michael Hoffman. Now I like Gary Marshall, but Michael Hoffman had just done Soap Dish. Now, that is a personal favorite. People don't talk about Soap Dish. Greg, I have made a Sally Field Soap Dish moment joke to you many times. Whenever I see somebody doing something in the world where I can tell they just want attention because they need a self-esteem boost, and I'll just say, "Oh, someone's having their Sally Fields from Soap Dish moment," and I'll show it to you at some point if you want, Greg. But it is very problematic at this point. I will say that. I'll say it out loud. But it's very. I love the comedy in Soap Dish, and I would like to put that comedy onto Runaway Bride with Michael Hoffman. See what we got. And then they had Elaine May, who's a rewrite queen. She was. They gave it to her to say, "Hey, girl, can you fix this?" And they did a structural rewrite, and then it fell apart. And then they had. They went from having a movie that was happening to just another development deal. I mean, this is a nightmare. And what's funny is that you say first draft, but I think it suffered from too many versions and too many comings and goings. And at one point, Sandra Bullock was attached to it, which I would have loved to have seen as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, and Richard Gere apparently was on before Julia Roberts and said, if you can get her to do it, I'll do it. And I was like, oh. I mean, what a bummer.
Well, and then Hoffman also then instead directed Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a movie that we talked about several episodes back, which is also from same year, which is like also not great. And so it just sort of is like you picked the wrong project. And yeah, I mean, I like it too. It's just like it has a lot of. I love Kevin Kline in that movie, but it's certainly like flawed. There's a lot to like about it, but it is kind of all over the place. But yeah, this does seem like more sort of. I just don't like Gary Marshall as a director. I'm not going to lie. No, like most of his movies are really bad.
You're fine. That's fine, except for did he direct
Pretty Woman?
Hocus Pocus, or
no?
He was just in it, married to his own sister. Now, Greg, you have a connection to Midsummer Night's Dream in that on the dating app where we met. Your name was Puck. I just want to say it out loud. Cute.
Oh, nice.
That's
there
true.
You go.
Yeah.
There you go.
That. Now,
did that come from Midsummer Night's Dream or from season 3 of The Real World? Which
probably
I have not seen The Real World
or
I have not seen this Midsummer Night's Dream movie.
Okay.
But I have read the play. So
okay.
From that.
All right. Cool.
Yes. Now, I want to talk about the 3 bows and the fact that her father has one single VHS tape with all
of them.
I have problems about the father as well. We'll come back to this in a second. But go ahead.
Okay.
He's a problem.
He's a problem altogether. I know what I was going to say before, but it's not that interesting. What I was going to say was, and this actually just comes up later, is because when we were talking about how kind of unlikable Julia Roberts is, I'm sorry to jump back to that, is in almost every scene where she's getting kind of ridiculed about this next marriage, I found myself thinking, I don't think she has any right to be annoyed right now. I think everyone in this town has the right to feel like we're doing this again.
Yeah.
Of course we're going to make fun of you. Why is she looking so injured? Because I have to say, everyone around her is equally as affected by her decisions to run every time. And I don't know who's paying for all these weddings and rehearsal dinners and like, luau's, but this injured look that she gets, I found that to be, I was a little annoyed. I was like, girl, you have put these people through so much. You can't do 10 minutes of a roast.
2 of them are still in town, right? the hippie guy, and then the priest thing is funny though. She left him at the altar, and he just stayed there. He became a priest.
And Donald Logue is just like perfect for that kind of role.
That dude was in Terriers. Now I can talk about an actor. That dude was in Terriers. Was a great show. Only I watched it apparently because it got canceled immediately. But Justice for Terriers.
Justice for Terriers. And famously, he had braids in Blade, and that's what I think about.
Oh, you're right. He was in that.
Yeah.
The smallest braids your eyes will ever see.
Very thin.
And he played what's his name in Gotham. He's a great actor. He was in the first season of Vikings. Like, he's awesome. Yeah, I like Donald Logue. But yeah, he's really good in a role like that for sure. I think all the minor roles were very well cast. Like, I think
they were all more interesting than Julia Roberts.
Yeah. Yeah.
When she went to visit the guy in the shop, Jen, did you see the Volkswagen thing? I know you.
Of course, I saw the Volkswagen thing. It was Tedward Bundy yellow.
Yeah, but you know what else that reminded me of is the former topic of this podcast, idle hands. Okay. And I thought maybe Richard Gere would just get smashed up against the ceiling. I was like, well, this is going to take a turn.
What are we to understand? Let's just think about that scene for 1 second. Are we to understand that for whatever reason, Richard Gere was having a conversation just from up at the top of this day?
And he couldn't have got up there himself. The other guy had to throw the switch and put him up there.
He was like, oh, can I get in the car? And he's like, let's ride up. And then right before she walks in, he's just talking over the car down to him. And then Julia Roberts, she's like, oh, she's coming. I don't know. What was that setup? That was so crazy.
Don't know.
There's so many, and again, like, I think the encapsulation of all of this to me is the Virtual Boy. I'm just like, what is this choice? First of all, I don't think a Virtual Boy has ever appeared in a movie aside from, I think this is the only movie that a Virtual Boy has ever appeared in, and I'd forgotten.
What is this? I know the scene you're talking about.
The Virtual Boy was a short-lived, catastrophic Nintendo system in like the late 1990s. Where it was this very clunky thing, this like massive headset. It was like virtual reality, but it really wasn't. But it was 3D. The 3D effect was pretty good, but all the graphics are black and red. The thing was like incredibly cumbersome and very difficult to use. Nobody bought one. It became something of like a technology joke. Right. So then there's like quirky thing where like the guy at the desk of this small town hotel, right, like has a Virtual Boy, and isn't that funny? And I'm like, this is what is like, but this is everything about this movie in a nutshell. Like, I'm fine with like quirky, zany movies, and I'm fine with like suspending disbelief and all of that sort of thing. But this movie keeps going from this like world where nothing makes sense and I'm supposed to just accept it to something that's like really grounded and like dramatic, and I'm supposed to accept that. And I never figure out exactly where this is all taking place in terms of like the rules of the reality of this world. Because I can see the story of this woman who just like, isn't it funny? She keeps running away from all of her husbands, but people still keep trying to marry her. Like, okay, I don't see that in real life, but if you can build a world where that makes sense. The problem is like they don't build a world where that makes sense. And like that's what keeps kind of taking me out of it, is that like I never quite am able to gauge like where I am. You know what I mean? Like that's where I kind of falls apart for me, I think.
Yeah, I guess I'm also, this is not going to be that I'm not going to blow anybody's minds here, but I guess it's confusing to be in a weird small town, but this kid's got a hold of this technology that, however unpopular.
I mean, you could get it at like Walmart. Like, it wasn't like the CIA had Virtual Boy and like, nobody else.
I know that Berlin, Maryland is not too far from like probably I think a Walmart, but I don't know where Hale, Maryland is. It seemed I think they wanted it to be very much in the middle of nowhere. So I was like, okay.
I suppose,
and he wasn't buying it on Amazon because they just had books. Yeah,
this guy's just distracted, right? He's not a good hotel clerk. He's just futzing around, and these break-ins are going on under his.
And it's Gary Marshall's son as well, so you know. He's got his dad. Nepotism. His dad gave him a job as the clerk at the hotel. Anyway, that's my I have one more so one more note. There's one part of the movie where, and like I was talking to Courtney about this today, and she hasn't seen it for like 20 years or whatever, right? And even she was like, is that the one that has the scene where she's standing in front of the fan and blowing bubbles? And I'm like, yes, that's the funniest scene of the movie. And like, more of this.
Well, and it's possible to stop that fan oscillating, right? It's one that has the little...
Sure.
You don't have to be chasing it around like a snake.
No.
Yes, but it's so good when Joan Cusack gets behind her and they're both moving in the same way.
And like Julia Roberts' physical comedy in that is great. Like it's a great scene, and like this is very funny. But it's all this stuff is so like few and far between. It's weird.
Do you think your favorite physical comedy was when she did the duckbill platypus thing, but it was really just a vagina? You don't remember that, Greg? You don't remember that?
I do remember that.
Like they made her. That was the only time where I
yeah.
I was like, I looked at it and went, that's a vagina. What is that?
I might have had the same thought.
Watch it again. Also, another Maryland complaint. Julia Roberts said she got something or went to an Oriole game.
Yes. I wrote this down too.
The Orioles.
Also.
Is that you don't say it like that? Oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's Orioles.
But do you guys know? I googled this. Do you know what the collective noun for a group of Orioles is, according to the internet?
I hope it's Oriole.
Murder.
It's not. It's a flamboyance of Orioles.
Yes.
Isn't that fun?
That is so fun.
I demand that the Baltimore Orioles baseball team now refer to the team collectively as a flamboyance and be like, the flamboyance is taking the field. First pitch.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah,
bird people are fucking weirdos, man. They're just like this is all made up bullshit. Like someone's like a murder of crows. Like, yeah, that sounds rad. Let's put it in our little ornithology book. Yeah, it's all bullshit. There's no science behind it being a flamboyance. It's just a funny fucking name. And someone was like, why not? No one's gonna check. We're bird people. No one knows what we do behind the scenes. The only bird knowledge that I really have is that James Bond was a ornithologist, right?
He was?
Do you guys know
this?
Yeah,
because he's always getting the birds, right?
That's another one of my
British style
facts. Do you guys know the James Bond thing?
No, I thought that
No. I'm not. No. So when Ian Fleming was writing James Bond, he had a book, an ornithology book called like The Birds of Western Europe or something by an ornithologist named James Bond, and that's where he got the name of the character from.
I mean,
and there's one of the movies where like it's on his bookshelf. It's on James Bond's actual bookshelf. Like the book is like behind him somewhere. It's like a nod to that. But yeah. Anyways, there you go. Little James Bond movie ornithology trivia for you. That
I thought you were like saying that's his cover. Like I say the spy, but he's also an ornithologist.
I would love to see that. Do that in a movie,
time, right?
Yeah, I was like, where's that? Now, I do want to get to the luau.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Was there any food at the luau?
No, I didn't see a single.
No pig in a pit.
And in this overly decorated madness. That's another thing. Like, you're right.
Is so ornate. It is so intricate. Like, how did they pull this off in this tiny town? No. This like massively elaborate luau. That's I
also couldn't get around. Like judging by the leaves, it was fall. Mm-hmm. And nowadays it still gets quite warm. It's quite warm all through October. But I'm here to tell you, in 1999, by the time fall rolled around, it was pretty chilly in Maryland. I was having a lot of trouble believing people are out there in their bikinis at this nighttime luau. Mm-hmm. But I guess like for me, that scene is, again, I just want to come back to the roasting. Was it so bad? Was it so bad? I didn't think so. I thought those were some good singers. And Laurie Metcalf, AKA, you know.
Maybe this is the third time they've done it. Maybe they don't get new material every time and it just gets stale.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the objection.
But it's like, what does she expect? Does she expect everyone to treat each wedding as if it's never happened before? Because that's kind of what she's doing with the dress shopping and the party and everything. Is Julia Roberts is like genuinely hurt and confused by this town.
Yeah. I think it's like people should be sad and upset by now about this and not just, I know it's like their town's claim to fame now, but like this person needs help. Like, and they're just sort of like, oh, we're doing another one. Ha ha ha. It doesn't never. Yeah.
I have on my thing right next to each other. This was an accident, but one question is, why is she such a mess? And then the next question is, she has a bag that says Libra on it. Are we to understand that this is what Libras are like?
I didn't notice that. You know, I can tell you that she's very messy. She feels like a Pisces like me.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. A little chaotic.
I believe Libras as part of their it's like they're indecisive, so that actually kind of does make sense. Right?
So they did that. The movie did that, Greg. That was a good.
I didn't know. Yeah, got to go watch it again now.
Good. So yeah, and that fight that Julia Roberts and Richard Gere get into, where once again he's telling this woman what she wants. But are we supposed to think that's romantic, or are we that scene like he gets it? Because in this argument, all he's screaming is, "This is what you want. You want a man to do this, and you want a man to do that." I'm like, well, it's still a man telling Julia Roberts what she wants.
Yep, for sure.
And then at the end, she sorts it out in a week-long montage that takes 1 minute of film.
She's got her eggs. She's got her running.
Yeah,
guys, I got to talk about Julia Roberts' hands when she.
they're the Alexis hands from Schitt's Creek.
Yes, they are. I was like, damn, awful. I don't think we saw that since was it the Pelican Brief that she did some running, but that's the thing too. How did she get quote unquote better? How was she finally able to marry Richard Gere? Spoiler.
Well,
what happened?
See, it comes down to the eggs. See, it's all about knowing for you what kind of eggs you like. And when you get that, it just unlocks everything else magically. And then you can just go get married to Richard Gere. And it's fine.
Great.
It's fine. I don't know. There's a lot of the other thing, right, about sort of the storytelling of this movie. Okay. There's two different movies here. There's the first hour and the second hour. And the second hour is a much better movie than the first hour, for sure. But I'm like, okay, but when did they start liking each other? Because I don't know what scene I should be pointing to where the two of them are like, hey, you're actually pretty cool. It just kind of happens in the second half of the movie.
Yeah, when they go to the dress shop and he sticks up for her desire to have a spendy dress. And then at the luau when he stands up for her. I think that's what does it. She's like, yeah, this guy.
But even then, when she offers to let him interview her for $1,000 or whatever, there's this idea that she is kind of softening to him. But I'm like, but why? Why do you not just hate this dude and want him to? Well, maybe.
All we have seen is her break into his room and read a bunch of insults about her, one of which is not beautiful enough.
Did Julia Roberts' movies have this meta component to them? Because obviously Notting Hill does. And the only other one I've seen is Ocean's 12, in which the plot point is that the character looks like Julia Roberts. That's how they do the heist. Sorry for the spoilers. Is she
I've never thought of Ocean's 12 as a Julia Roberts movie.
I mean, she's in it, right?
She's in it. She's in it. It's true.
She's crucial to the heisting.
I've seen all the classics. Notting Hill, Ocean's 12, and Runaway Bride.
Correct.
And
two of them I've seen in the last month.
Here's my thesis.
I'm on the upswing. She does all this meta stuff.
No.
In the 3 movies that you've seen of the many that she's been in.
I feel like you watched Flatliners. We watched a little bit.
Oh, we did watch Flatliners a little bit in a hotel room.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I don't remember what happened in that.
Also, dies. I think then she also ran quite a bit in Conspiracy Theory, which was after Pilgrim.
Mel Gibson, the Mel Gibson movie.
That's
I love that movie.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
I loved it. I'm so sorry. Mel Gibson's not great.
Nope.
Now
more on that later, but yeah.
And again, we're hopping all over the place, but when she ends up in his apartment at the end of the movie after how much time do you think has passed since she
since
the wedding and this moment?
Week? Maybe
I guessed like 3 months.
Because it seems like the weather hasn't changed fully to winter. He's still wearing a light jacket.
Yeah. I don't think they even pay attention to weather in this movie, honestly. I do.
And can I tell you what I did? When they go out on his balcony, I looked for the Twin Towers.
Oh.
And I was like, did movies start doing that thing where they're taking the Twin Towers out? Or
he was way uptown. Like he's way uptown in that movie because you can kind of see the Empire State Building like in Midtown, way down. But he's also in Maryland, so that's Baltimore with a New York City background.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they filmed everything in Maryland.
I know
they didn't film anything in New York City.
I didn't know that.
No, the skyline was a like New York City effect, like green screen. Yeah, it was. But it was. The actual apartment was in Baltimore.
So. Okay, I wonder which apartment it was. Let's guess. No, you know what? It did have. You know what? It vaguely looked like the Belvedere, which I've always wanted to see the inside of. Now, I had a thought as she's up there. And she's on the couch petting the cat, named Italics. 10 out of 10 on that name. Who fed that cat while he was out there?
I wrote that movie. Jesus Christ.
Who fed that cat? I don't know. Nobody.
Right. Homer and Italics. Yeah. God damn it.
Yeah.
Fucking movie.
He opens up inexplicably, because it's raining out, opens up his balcony doors and sits down. And I thought to myself, is this a nod to Pretty Woman? Because in Pretty Woman, Richard Gere's character is terrified of heights. And there's a scene where Julia Roberts is like sitting on the balcony of the hotel and she's kind of fucking with him a little bit and leaning back. And he's like, don't. And in this movie, it's reversed. He's now out sort of on the balcony and she's inside. Am I doing too much right now? So I thought,
I like it.
I think this is a subtle nod to Pretty Woman, except now it's Richard Gere precarious on the balcony, trying to put his trust into a woman who has broken his trust.
I thought it was another. It was another episode of Julia Roberts does a thing to get the guy.
It's true. That's true.
Which
that's true too.
She does a big gesture.
Yeah.
Yep. Just a girl standing in front of Richard Gere, asking him to take her shoes that she runs away from.
Yeah, what's he doing with those? And also the clutter inside his apartment was giving me so much anxiety. I couldn't.
Oh, I hate it. Yeah, authors' apartments that are just nonstop books and just everywhere. I'm like,
they really
put them away.
On the author thing, because the bar that he goes to in New York is like an author-themed bar. I'm just where all the writers are.
I feel like it was based. There's a bar in the Upper West Side that I used to go to called the Dead Poet, and I'm pretty sure it was based on that bar. It's not that bar because they filmed everything in Maryland, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was alluding to.
Do you think what bar could that have been? I'm sure. What bar? Where's the production? I normally know these things.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was in Fells Point.
Yeah. So, no, bars in New York City are not that spacious. That was a very wide room
City,
bar. Well, bars of like that caliber are not that spacious, right? Like it was a much wider. They're much more narrow. If it's that sort of a bar in New York City, but anyways, Larry Miller works there, so I'll still go get a drink from Larry. So... Also, like one more, so I do want to talk about this real quick because like I love Paul Dooley who plays her dad, and he's a great actor, and he's always great in whatever he's in. I love the character, I love the performance of the character. Like again, all of the minor characters are great, but then it like when they did the thing where it's like, well, I don't like that you get drunk all the time, and then he's like the last thing this character does is kind of look at her all sad, and I'm like, we're not going to follow up on this, like. You're just gonna leave that fucking hanging there? Like, oh, I guess he's just gonna have an alcohol problem forever, and that's how she's gonna deal with it, and we're never gonna like close that loop.
here's what I think is also happening is she does say dad's been drinking more since mom died. Now, did she?
Yeah.
We don't know when mom died. Maybe it was 30 years ago. Which would be a lot of drinking. But I'm wondering if he didn't really have a problem. It was just a normal thing. And then since mom died, he did. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be an alcoholic. You can be an alcoholic anytime. But I do wonder if it's just like I've been dealing with this thing for like 3 or 4 years since mom died, which is different than like I have full-blown childhood trauma from my alcoholic father, although that would certainly explain the running.
Yeah, I just don't like when movies make alcoholism a plot point and then forget about it. Like, it's just really frustrating.
It's like the movie blacked out.
Yeah.
At the end,
very sobering experience. Yeah,
all the stuff toward the end, I wrote. It felt like they were running out of film. Like, we got to wrap this. We've only got 20 more minutes.
Oh shit! It's been 2 hours. Yeah.
That's why movies are so long now, right? Because they don't run out. You can have like a 3-hour movie.
Nothing's not shot on film anymore.
Yeah. So, like the camera doesn't get empty.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And they certainly didn't on Runaway Bride, which now you have made me
No. It's 2 hours long, but they get to the last little bit and they're like, oh my God, we got to cram all this stuff in.
Yes.
Like she's got to do a complete about face and get her life together. And then they got to do a 5th wedding.
Oh my God.
And that all happens in the span of a few minutes.
The whole town fucking celebrates. Oh man, that scene. Like,
why is that wedding cake lady celebrating? She's making bank on this woman and all of her cakes.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like dancing with bread. It's weird.
Although Jen, Richard Gere went in and ordered cinnamon buns in that bakery in Hale, and we ordered cinnamon buns.
We got some very good cinnamon buns
in Berlin, Maryland.
Maybe it's the same. I don't think it's the same place. I mean, I was looking. I felt like that might have been Baltimore because I don't know where that. Because when we did the walk, we did the self-guided walking tour. And we were told that the only real shop was the hardware shop. So that was a hardware shop already. They didn't have to do anything to that, which great. The bridal shop is where we got an interview with a woman who owned it. I recorded it psychotically. And this woman said, sometimes people come in and I let them stand under the chandelier. That's where Julia Roberts stood. And I was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. The chandelier is now behind the counter, like where the cashier.
Yeah. So that's how you
know. Okay.
But that's now some sort of like a clothing store. Nothing. I mean, it's movie magic, but aesthetically, just the Main Street area, which is what we see most of the time. That's exactly the same. Barely changed. It was surreal, honestly.
Yes, it was.
Well, so I'm going to ask both of you because I actually really don't know where I fall on this, but we talked a lot with Notting Hill about how Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts' chemistry is just like phenomenal. One of the criticisms that I read a lot of some of the negative reviews of this movie was that Richard Gere and Julia Roberts don't anymore, and there's just like no chemistry between them in this movie. I didn't think so. I maybe because I find both of them so appealing as people and as actors, and I might be sort of inventing the chemistry in my head, but like I always believe them together. They always seem like they're very sort of drawn to. I don't know. What do you think,
Gregory?
I'm not good at judging whether or not acting is good or not.
It's not acting. It's like it's whether or not it's not about the acting. It's like whether or not these two people, when they are together, like you feel a certain kind of feeling. Like that's what chemistry is, right? Like it's not whether or not they're.
I have a PhD in chemistry, John, and that is not chemistry.
Well, I will say that, in 1999, obviously, we're still doing that thing where an entire relationship is built on negging, which, these people are in their 30s, or for Richard Gere, probably 40s. It's hard to tell because he went gray so early.
He's 50 years old in this movie. He was born in 1949. He was the same age as my parents.
She's 36, right?
Yeah. I think she's looking good as shit. Sorry.
Well, I was just wondering about the timeline of all these marriages, right? So if she does,
well, that's the other thing.
Cranks one out every 2 years. She could have started at 24.
Well, the first wedding, I assume, was obviously weirdly 60s themed because her boyfriend was obsessed with the dead. But then I thought to myself, I don't know. Is she getting married in the 70s? Maybe I'm wrong.
This ageless woman keeps getting married. That's a horror movie.
Yes, it is. I'm going to say that I thought that a very horny scene between them was that argument in front of the luau. There was a lot of chemistry in that scene, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I could see these two, getting it." No.
Yeah. The part where she's walking down the aisle to
Which
marry
one?
him, I know, right? Yeah. To marry him, and she kind of stops, and then she like does a little smirk and keeps going. Yes. That was good.
Yeah. That was very good. I said, "Look at that little face." That was a Julia choice.
Yeah, that was excellent.
The scene when they first kiss in the church was great. Like, yeah.
That was pretty horny. I almost called you, Greg. I was pretty horned up. Hi, honey.
Look, I like part of the reason I like this movie is because she does cut and run before the kissing for almost the whole movie.
Do you want to tell John about your stance on kissing? And
I don't approve of it. I don't approve of kissing.
Do you not believe in kissing before marriage?
No.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. The problem with it in movies is that they actually do it.
Yeah.
That's not fair. They're supposed to be acting.
Well, the characters.
No. When they punch each other, they don't really punch each other, right? It's like a game. They gotta figure out how to make it look like without actually doing it. They don't really shoot each other except for that one movie, I guess.
But why?
But in the kissing parts, they just do it. They just go to work and kiss their coworkers, and it's weird. Sure. I don't approve of it. They should not do it. And they shoehorn it into a bunch of movies. This movie, makes sense.
Why should they not?
But a lot of movies, they shoehorn it in.
We have this conversation a lot. It's not puritanical,
nope.
Trust me.
Why should they not do it?
This is
why not? I would feel weird if I had to go to work and they're just like, you're going to be kissing so-and-so today. I'd be like,
let's just fake it. I'd feel weird if you did that. I would also feel weird if that was your job.
Yeah.
It's
and I think that they, because they're actors, they should act and not really do it. I think that's not the game.
Well, and I let Greg know that
they're really talking. So they really do speak, even though the lines are
ADR.
And sometimes they do accents. I do like when they have to do accents, like when an Australian actor has to talk like he's American.
That is an endearingly weird hang up that you have.
Isn't it fun? Like, it's great. Whenever there's a kissing scene in a movie, I go, uh-oh.
Oh my god,
it's very funny.
So unnecessary.
That's so. I'm watching with my high school students right now. We're watching the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet, and like it blows my mind. And this again, like getting back to the whole chemistry thing, is like that Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes hated each other, like despised each other on set. They couldn't stand to be near each other, and their chemistry in that movie is like among the most electric atomic shit. Like
hatred.
It is.
That's the hatred.
But it's so incredible and beautiful, and it's like I don't understand how you square this, but like, man, yeah, chemistry has nothing to do with how you actually feel about somebody. It is all about just like it's fucking wild. But yeah, I think I really like them together. I never had a problem. I think if you don't think their chemistry works in this movie, then there's just nothing to like. And I understand why you.
I do think it's a spillover from Pretty Woman, even though these are two entirely different motion pictures. Richard Gere still gray in both of them. I don't know. When did that happen? So,
he's been gray like his whole life, though. He's been gray since he was like in his 20s. That's been kind of his thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, this movie's so over the top. I'm assuming it was not ever supposed to be grounded in reality, where an entire town is hyper focused on one woman. At all times. It's crazy.
And again, I think if they'd leaned more into the over the topness, I would have liked it more, right? I think if they like built more of a like bizarro world here and made it a lot more farcical, I would have liked it more. I just felt like tonally it just kind of kept going all over the place in terms of like, is it a down home, right, small town romance movie, or is it this like crazy over the top weird, completely unbelievable premise that is being sort of like play it out. That was my issue.
I like the movie, but it did occur to me that there was like a different movie that I wanted to see about the same topic.
Right.
Well, what I wanted, I want two movies. I want one called Bride and one called Groom. Okay. And they start the same way. Okay. The bride is coming down the aisle. Okay. It's like over her shoulder, and the groom is standing there, and the groom movie is over his shoulder. And then she legs it, right? She's off. And the groomsmen in the Groom movie, they were just like his buddies from college, and they're just there to like drink and maybe get after some bridesmaids. And now they have to do like heavy emotional lifting. They're not ready, right? And like one of the groomsmen is maybe the bride's brother. He doesn't know the other ones. And he's got to be like, well, she's kind of been flighty, guys. I don't know what to tell you. And they got to like do all this. And meanwhile, in the Bride movie, she like scarpers off to some pub or something and maybe meets some of those ladies with the red hats, and they're like wacky, but maybe wise and whatever. And they do this whole thing of like, should they get married or not? The idea is you got to get the internet to have teams. Like, should they get married or not get married? The internet loves that stuff. And maybe Taylor Swift would get involved. Her boyfriend is on a team, so he would get the premise. He would understand you got to be married or not married, which team are you on? Anyway, they do all this stuff. And then at the end, they end the same way too, where they like maybe come back together.
Yep.
And, you're seeing them in front of the church, and they're walking on the sidewalk, and it's like, they're going to talk about their future or whatever. And like the artsy people, I think, would want it to just fade to black. We don't know what happens. And the studio execs would like that too, because then you could have a sequel. But I think that what should happen is they're standing there, and then a bus jumps the curb and splats them both. No sequel. Two first movies. The way God intended.
I like it. I like it up to the ending. I'm going to have to add some kissing in here.
You don't ever have to have it. That's the beauty of it. She runs before the kissing, and then they don't get within arm's length of each other the whole movie.
We're going to replace the bus part with a kissing scene, but otherwise, everything because
then you know what happens if they have the kissing scene. You got to have the mystery so the internet can fight about it.
You really thought this out.
I just made this up right now.
That is interesting.
He grabs his like sex script. He's like, actually,
this is a pitch. I actually do think
writing this since I was 17.
It would be interesting if there was a couple of spinoffs where we get to see how the one guy became the priest.
Yeah.
What happened to poor Gil? And we already know.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm curious about is also the third guy who, of course, meets Richard Gere in the bar in New York.
The entomologist, right?
He's still seemingly heartbroken, which kind of tells me somehow that either he's still holding on to it, which he may very well be, or that didn't happen that much long ago, yet somehow she's already engaged in planning another wedding. I feel like she's getting married in pretty quick succession.
She tries to marry Richard Gere, like right then.
That's true.
That was crazy.
She's got the church anyway. You might as well do. The other thing where I was like, please edit this out of this movie because this is making me bananas, was when Christopher Maloney is like, hey man, the better man won, and like, I'm happy. Like, you hate this guy. Yeah. You met him like a week ago. He just literally fucking stole your fiance that you love and were about to get married to. And like, you're fine. And like, no harm. I'm like, fuck no. Like that. I just cut this scene. Like, have him hate him, and then have him meet the girl who knows about boxing. And that's it. You don't need that fucking scene in there.
The coach dude is weirdly friendly to Richard Gere the whole time.
Stop calling Richard Gere.
Richard Gere.
I know.
His name is bad. I said at the beginning, it's bad. It's still bad now.
Okay.
Gere.
Very friendly to Richard Gere.
Yeah, he gives him a Letterman jacket. Those are expensive.
Yeah.
And he just had one laying around. Like, I don't know. That guy's weird.
Yeah.
Well, he's a big New York big shot. So, they don't come to town very often. So you got to give him a Letterman jacket.
Yeah. This is again like an era. So he's no longer writing for USA Today because he gets fired, and we don't know why he gets fired. And now this one story he's maybe pitching to GQ, although Julia Roberts at one point, having never been a writer, says you're probably writing on spec, and it's like, Okay, so Julia knows about these things.
She probably did. She got on that gumdrop iMac at Curl Up and Die and was like,
great name, by the way.
She figured that out. Did a little research.
So yeah, it's. I guess this could speak to obviously how these people are just projecting themselves onto Julia Roberts, so that when that relationship does end, apart from the guy in the bar drinking his way into Richard Gere's column, you're just like, that. Of course they got over it, because nobody was ever in love. They were just dating. The men were dating themselves, and Julia Roberts was dating the men, and nobody was dating Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Until Richard Gere came along and
figured out what kind
her.
of egg she likes.
Yeah.
So,
Wait, what did she decide again? Did she say Eggs Benedict? Oh, she said Benedict.
Eggs Benedict. Because he's like, Benedict Arnold? And she's like, no, Eggs Benedict. And you're like, oh, I get it. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Any other thoughts on this?
I got a couple other ones. Did you guys notice that there's a set of triplets, a set of twins, and a set of boy twins and girl twins?
No, I saw the
what's
babies,
that all about?
and then the three girls.
There's the babies.
Yeah, those are, I think, the same girls, the triplets. And then there's two boys in stripesy brown shirts that are on the scenes in the street. Yes. And then there's the redheaded flower girls.
Yeah, what is that? What is this movie filled with? And John, you have twin daughters, so
I do.
Surely you're just out there clocking twins and triplets, and what is that? That's weird.
It is weird. What? It's weird. I feel like that's from a different draft of the script where that matters explained, and it just sort of You're right. It is strange.
The water supply at Hale, Maryland, people are extra fertile. I don't know.
Do you think? Oh my God, is it called Hale, Maryland because Richard Gere's like the Hail Mary, like he's the last? Is that it?
What? Oh no, it is Hale, Maryland. Oh fuck!
I'm very sad.
God damn it! You're 100% correct.
That would be it. Oh God. Well,
there's a lot of football metaphors in the movie.
That's the one joke that stayed through every iteration of the script. Like, we cannot change Hale. It's got to be. That and 17 sets of twins and triplets, and don't you dare change it.
Because why would you? The whole time I'm like, why would you change the name of this nice Berlin? It's a nice name for a place in Maryland to Hale. That's
all I kept thinking of was Hale Bop.
Hale, Maryland.
I was thinking of Hale Bop, and I was like, oh boy, that's bad. That's bad.
Just
too.
The weather, hail. It's nothing's. There's no good hails.
Well, no, and there is the way that it's spelled, right? HLE, HALE is like Hale and Hardy. That's the good one.
Hale and
That's
Hardy.
The one you want.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Okay.
So in the scene where the wedding dress is like a bell, she is like the donger. She is like the clapper in the bell. That's what we're to understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Felt like we didn't spend enough on that. Julia Roberts is the clapper, the thing that you do to make your
bell
go off.
Maybe it's like she's ringing your bell.
Maybe.
But then she does the thing in the church where there's the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
She rings that bell too.
That was so strange. Was that just anything to avoid doing this whatever they were doing rehearsal? It was very weird. Again, this woman has been almost married in that church at least once before.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, I've never seen this rope before. What could this be? Even if you've never been in that church ever, you know what that's for. She goes, what's this for? And I was like, really? we know what that is. Julia, what's going on here? She got her bell rung.
Well,
by love.
Well,
so
whatever happened with the script. Whatever happened with the script in the end, the two writers credited to it are I think Josanne McGibbon and Sarah Perriott, who are best known now as my daughters will tell you, the writers behind all four the Descendants movies on Disney Channel. So if you guys don't know what that is, it's very popular with the young tweens.
No.
So there are a series of musicals on Disney where like it's like the evil, like the children of a lot of the Disney princesses and villains are like the second generation.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. And so it's like then they have their own like struggles with each other and friendship and all that sort of thing. And like whether or not they like have to be evil because their mom was like Maleficent or, you know, that sort of thing.
Wasn't there a movie that was made like that vaguely recently with Charlize Theron? And that wasn't it. And Paul Feig. It was like the School of Good and Evil or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that was a series. I can't remember. That's kind of the same thing, actually. They're
along
not the
those
same
lines, yeah. They also both wrote the sequel to Three Men and a Baby called Three Men and a Little Lady from 1990. That was, I think, their first major project together, but they've written a bunch of stuff together since then, including The Descendants and also including the semi-short-lived Deborah Messing vehicle, The Starter Wife. Deborah Messing sucks, but
yeah, she does.
There you go. Yep. So yeah, they've done a bunch of stuff together, and they are credited as the writers.
Are they in a relation?
I don't know. I don't really know anything. I think they're just writing partners.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I really don't know a lot about them. But again, like the script went through a bunch of writers, so I don't know exactly of the finished product what exactly was theirs. But that's who they are, and that's where it came from. Mm-hmm. So either credit or blame them for whatever went wrong with this movie. But yeah, I mean, I ultimately, like, I agree. Like, I think there's, after watching Notting Hill, which is like one of the greatest romantic comedies ever made, yes, it's just kind of hard to go to this, and especially knowing that this like made more money at the box office, which is kind of depressing. But of course it has, you know, I guess a lot more kind of like star power behind it and studio backing behind it, whatever the case was.
Also,
there's stuff to like here. Like there's enjoyable things. That's true. It's not great, but like there's definitely enjoyable stuff here. It is not a lousy 2 hours for sure. It's just sort of often frustrating.
I wonder if we would like it. I still liked it, but had we not just watched Notting Hill, would we be a little more forgiving?
I think so. Yeah, it's really hard to like. It is such a banger, and it's really hard to make that transition. But
although Julia Roberts is barely a person in that movie, so it stands to reason. Like as I said on the podcast, as Greg and I talked together, it's those friends. I'm watching that movie for those friends and Hugh Grant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching this movie mostly for the supporting cast too. Like it's great character actors who are always awesome. So yeah. Anyway, there you go. Mm-hmm. That's Runaway Bride. All right. So shall we move on to our finale?
Yeah. Here we go.
Are we putting Greg on the spot now?
Kind of. He listens to the podcast, but probably not.
He probably knows what's in store. Greg, aside from Runaway Bride and Ocean's 12, that didn't come out 99. What is your favorite movie of 1999?
Well, so you, John, have already mentioned that you don't like this movie, but I think you just weren't. You just got to be in the right space, right? And that space is your buddy's basement at a slumber party at 11 years old. And the movie is Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. What? Fantastic. It's so fun. I have fond memories of it. I haven't watched it since then, but I'm sure it all holds up. Absolutely certain. It was delightful. I very much enjoyed it. And then I enjoyed quoting it incessantly at school for weeks afterward with my pals.
Everybody did. I'm not above it. We all did. It was, I still like it.
I'm sure John, it was very annoying for everybody else, but it was awesome for me. That's the question.
I love that movie. John comes from British stock. Like,
okay, but hold on a second. I was one of the few people to see the first Austin Powers, like when it actually came out, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. We're gonna obviously talk about this in great detail. My problem, I think the third one is just like unwatchably bad.
Was that Gold?
My problem,
Gold
member, it's awful. My problem with the second one was that what made the first movie funny was that it was a fish out of water movie, and then they put the fish back in the water, and I'm like, it's not funny anymore.
Yeah, you got all this 60s eye candy.
I know, but it's like the basic joke that made the movie work is gone. I don't know. I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters at the time, so I might have a very different opinion of it. Maybe it's worse. I don't know, but we'll see. I'm willing to.
The second one with Will Ferrell. Where is Dr. Evil hiding? Where is Dr. Damn 3 times? Is that the second one with Will Ferrell or the first? It doesn't matter.
I don't remember. I think it's the second one, but it has Heather Graham in it, and that's always that's always a buy-in for me.
This movie. It's not just me that likes it. This movie was nominated for an Oscar, and it won a Grammy. It was nominated for an Oscar. I'm not making that up. That's true, and it did.
Costume design, set design,
makeup, costume,
production design,
for makeup.
Okay.
For makeup. Okay,
but that counts. Still Oscar nominated.
A+ makeup in that movie. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna again, when we eventually get to this movie, I will clear my mind of hating it when it came out and try.
Just gotta put yourself in the target audience's
fair and open. I will go hang out in a basement with some high schoolers, smoke a bunch of weed,
Don't isolate that line.
All right. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Pitch Perfect 2. It is a delightful
Pitch Perfect 2.
Yes.
This is true.
Pitch Perfect 2, not Pitch Perfect 1.
Pitch Perfect 1 is excellent. 2. I really like Pitch Perfect 1, but Pitch Perfect 2 just takes it to a whole nother level. Instead of being champions of college, they're champions of the world in Pitch Perfect 2. And that's as good as it gets. There's no acapella in space because there's no sound in space.
There isn't yet. That's true. But
it's delightful. I would like to be a Bard and Bella when I grow up. Doesn't seem like it's in the cards. I'm not good at singing.
I want to be clear, John. He's not kidding. This is his favorite.
I know. I can tell he's not kidding.
I love this movie.
We watched it a couple of times.
It is one of the few movies I've seen more than once. Which really honestly speaks to the rewatchability of the movie because it's mostly singing. You can listen to an album more than once. That's not a burden. But watching a movie where you already know the plot twists, if it's just plot twists, it's quite dull. But the singing, keep coming back to that. It's awesome. And when I'm out in the world and I hear a snatch of a song from Pitch Perfect, it's a little game I get to play. I'm like, I know at least a few bars of this song. Thanks to Becca Mitchell and her mashup styling.
Her girl talk vibes.
Yeah, it is. It's literally girl talk though, because they're all ladies.
So let me ask you this: what is your opinion of the role that a cappella music should play within our culture?
I'm happy for people to enjoy it. I've never. I don't think I've ever had any interaction with acapella in real life. I do have a friend who did acapella, and I asked him if they could do that like riff off stuff that they do, and he said no, and I was pretty disappointed about that.
I think you can. Maybe he just can't.
Yeah, maybe he's just not very good.
No.
It's possible.
That seems like more of a gal.
Bad at other stuff. It could be bad at this too.
My feeling is like acapella music belongs in college and only in college. It very much belongs in college.
Yeah, it's very
you should listen to acapella music. You should have an acapella group. You should be in acapella groups when you're in college. But when those 4 years are over, there is no more acapella music for the rest of your life.
What about barbershopping? They have that in this movie we just watched too. There's barbershop singers.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. That's
true. You're forgetting one at one time when acapella is okay, and it was a little group called Rockapella, and it was a little show.
Yeah.
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? And
right, very limited things, and like Rockapella was also like the other place that acapella music can exist. I think is when you like go with your parents to like the local theater to see Rockapella on tour and like watch it live. When you start buying the fucking Tetraponics, whatever the fuck their name is, Christmas album.
Pentatonics, right?
Whatever the fuck they're called. I'm like, no. This does not belong in malls. This does not belong in grocery stores. This does not belong on pop radio. Get it off. This is not the place for a cappella music.
It does seem weirdly limiting, but maybe it's like the White Stripes, right? Where they intentionally limited themselves in order to be creative. You could do the same thing with a cappella, probably. I don't see why not.
Sure. And then they made that one riff that is now played at every sporting event on the history.
I can hear them singing it from my house because I live near the Ravens Stadium. You can tell if the game is going well or not.
Good times. All right, this was fun. Great answers, by the way. Yes. Very, very, very bold and courageous to admit that you love the second Austin Powers movie and this. You like sequels, man. You're a sequel guy.
I actually kind of don't like sequels. I'd like a fresh story, but
coming out here with Ocean's 12 and Pitch Perfect 2.
Right. Ocean's 12 is bad. What? It is bad. Ocean's 12 is not a good one.
No,
there's 4 Ocean's movies, right? 5. And
including Ocean's 8.
Yeah.
The first one's great. That's all I
the original one is bad. The
one with
the original like Frank Sinatra one, sucks.
The thing about James heard me say this, the Frank Sinatra one is impossible to watch because all the people in the movie, they all look the same. All the people in the Rat Pack. You can't keep track of who's who, except for Sammy Davis Jr. He's the only black guy in the movie. Yeah. He's the only person that you can tell what is going on with his character. Because everybody else is interchangeable. Is it a new character or is it a new suit? We don't know. It's unwatchable.
You heard it here.
But that's actually it's great that you say that because like again, Jen and I talked about this before. This is like the Ocean's 11 with George Clooney is like the perfect example of. That's the kind of movie you should remake because the original sucks, but it had a great premise and potential, and they fucking knocked it out the park with the remake.
Yep,
like remake awesome. Bad movies that could have been good. That is what you should be remaking.
Do not remake American Psycho, you psycho.
And stop trying to remake The fucking Crow, but remake Highlander. Remake all the Highlanders. All right, Greg, thanks for joining us. You did great.
Thank you for having me.
Very fun to have you. Loved your elaborate movie pitch. Definitely going to
shout
that to the old studios.
Call Jen. Yep. She knows what to do.
That's right.
Changing the ending from the bus splattering everybody to them kissing. But otherwise, I am rolling with that. Bride and Groom, the movie. All right, so we'll be back in 2 weeks. With a banger, with a big one, a big 99 landmark that we have talked about before, but we haven't covered it yet, and that is She's All That. So go grab your Usher dance moves and your real world audition tapes
and go paint a deceased relative
and try to find a way to believe that Rachel Lee Cook could ever not be hot. And look out for frogs, and we'll see you next time.
Runaway train, never going back. Wrong way.